Man, it feels like every time I finally get a handle on the latest and greatest in software development, the ground shifts beneath my feet.
Yeah, keeping up with software development these days is like trying to learn a new language while the dictionary keeps getting rewritten every other week.
Exactly. You finally think you've got it, and bam, a whole new paradigm appears.
Right. And for you, as someone who's always eager to stay ahead of the curve, understanding these seismic shifts is crucial.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're tackling something that's been generating a ton of buzz since, probably early February this year. Vibe coding?
Vibe coding, yeah. And the real spark that lit this fire came from a pretty influential figure in the world of AI and coding, Andrej Karpathy.
Definitely. Karpathy has this incredible track record. Co-founded OpenAI, led AI at Tesla. When he talks about the future of coding, people listen.
For sure. And for you, what makes this deep dive so relevant is that we're going to dissect vibe coding from multiple angles, explore its potential, but also really delve into the practical considerations, the potential pitfalls, the stuff you really need to be aware of before diving headfirst.
Okay, so vibe coding. For those who haven't encountered the term yet, what are we even talking about here?
Basically, it boils down to this.
Yeah.
You're using natural language, plain, everyday English, to tell an AI what kind of code you want.
So instead of writing out lines of Python or JavaScript, you're having a conversation with an AI and it spits out the code for you.
Exactly. You're essentially instructing these powerful large language models, or LLMs, and they do the heavy lifting of translating your instructions into the specific syntax of a programming language.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but I immediately have a bunch of questions popping into my head.
Oh, for sure, there are a ton of questions. And that's what we're here to explore. I mean, the potential here is huge. Imagine significantly faster development times. Imagine software creation becoming accessible to people who don't have years of traditional programming experience under their belts. Imagine entirely new kinds of software emerging because the barrier to entry has been lowered.
Okay, yeah, those are some exciting possibilities, but with any technology that promises to shake things up this much, there are bound to be some serious concerns.
Absolutely. And for you, those concerns are super valid. Like, what about the quality of the code these AIs produce? Can we trust it to be reliable? What about security vulnerabilities? If an AI writes the code, how easy is it for a human to understand, maintain, and update that code down the line? And then, of course, there's the big question. What happens to the role of the software developer in this new world?
Right. These are huge questions. And it's interesting, when Karpathy really brought this idea into focus, he kind of framed it as almost giving in to the vibes, letting the AI take the reins in generating code. But I feel like the conversation has become a bit more nuanced since then.
It definitely has. And for you, it's important to understand that there's actually a whole spectrum of approaches emerging within this idea of vibe coding. At one end, you have folks who are really leaning into this idea of trusting the AI implicitly, letting it generate code with minimal human intervention. But at the other end, there's this more collaborative approach where the human user is actively involved, reviewing the AI's output, guiding it, refining it.
I remember reading an article by AI researcher Simon Willison, and he made an interesting distinction. He argued that if you're carefully reviewing, testing, and really understanding the code that the AI generates, you're not really vibe coding, you're engaging in AI-assisted development.
That's a super important point for you to consider. Where do we draw that line? Willison's argument highlights the crucial role of human engagement and comprehension. Without those elements, are we truly vibe coding? Or are we just hoping for the best and potentially setting ourselves up for trouble down the road?
So let's say you are actively engaging with the AI in this process. What does that back and forth actually look like?
It's generally an iterative and conversational process. You start by giving the AI a prompt, describing what you want the software to do in plain English. The AI then takes that prompt and generates what it thinks is the corresponding code. As the user, you review that code. If it's not quite right, or if you need to add more features, you can provide feedback, refine the initial prompt, or give new instructions based on what the AI produced.
So it's this ongoing dialogue, refining and shaping the code through natural language instructions.
Exactly. And Karpathy even mentioned that if you hit an error when you try to run the AI-generated code, you can often just copy and paste that error message right back into the conversation with the AI, and it can help diagnose the problem and suggest a fix. Pretty cool, huh?
That is pretty cool, but it really changes the role of the programmer, doesn't it? You're not spending all your time writing code. You're more like a director, guiding the AI, crafting the prompts, reviewing the output.
Precisely. And this shift is leading to the emergence of a new skill set, prompt engineering. It's about understanding how to communicate effectively with the AI to get the results you want. It's not just about programming syntax anymore. It's about understanding how to harness the power of these AI models through clear, well-structured natural language instructions.
And I can see how this iterative conversational workflow could really speed up the initial stages of development, like getting a prototype up and running quickly.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the biggest potential benefits for you. Vibe coding has the potential to dramatically accelerate prototyping and experimentation. You can try out different ideas, test different features, all without the traditional overhead of manually writing all the code from scratch.
Now, one of the aspects of vibe coding that's generating a lot of excitement is this idea that it could open up software development to people who aren't like hardcore coders, this idea of democratization. Tell me more about that.
This is where things get really interesting for you, especially if you're someone who's always thought, I have this great idea for an app, but I don't know how to code. Vibe coding has the potential to lower that barrier to entry. Imagine someone with expertise in a specific field, a biologist, a teacher, a musician. They might have amazing ideas for software, but lack the technical skills to bring those ideas to life. With vibe coding, they could potentially describe what they need in plain English, and the AI could help bridge that gap.
So we might see this whole wave of citizen developers creating niche apps and tools tailored to their specific needs.
Exactly. That's the exciting potential here. It could lead to an explosion of specialized software that addresses very specific needs that traditional software companies might not even be aware of.
Okay, but then the question becomes, what happens to the role of the professional software developer in this world where anyone can potentially create software?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And for you, as someone who's invested in this field, it's important to understand that the consensus seems to be that the role of the developer will evolve rather than disappear. As we've been discussing, the emphasis shifts. It becomes less about writing every line of code yourself and more about guiding the AI, reviewing its work, understanding its limitations, and ensuring the overall quality and security of the final product.
So we're likely to see new specializations emerge within software development, things like AI architects and prompt engineers.
For sure. And for you, developing expertise in these areas could be a valuable investment. The future of software development seems to be pointing towards this collaborative relationship between humans and AI, where human oversight, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of software principles remain essential.
Let's get down to brass tacks. For someone who's considering diving into this world of vibe coding, what are the key advantages and challenges you need to be aware of?
The advantages are definitely compelling. We've touched on the speed of development, the rapid prototyping, the potential for smaller teams to achieve more. But beyond that, vibe coding has the potential to really boost efficiency by automating those tedious, repetitive tasks that can bog down developers. It frees up time and mental energy for more creative problem solving and high-level design thinking.
So potentially a big win for productivity and job satisfaction for developers.
Absolutely. But for you, it's important to also be aware of the challenges, and there are several significant ones. First, the current state of AI, while impressive, still struggles with truly complex, large-scale systems. Those systems often have intricate dependencies and performance requirements that are hard to capture in natural language prompts alone. Security is another big one. AI could generate code that has vulnerabilities, and if you're not a seasoned coder, you might not have the expertise to spot those vulnerabilities.
Yikes. That's a little scary, the AI unintentionally introducing security flaws.
Yeah, it's a real concern. And then there is the whole issue of code quality and maintainability for you. If you're rapidly generating code, it can be tempting to just run with it, but that can lead to messy code that's hard to understand and update down the line. And finally, there's this concern about de-skilling. If developers become too reliant on AI to do the coding for them, are they missing out on developing a deep understanding of the fundamentals?
Okay, so it's not all sunshine and roses. There are definitely some real trade-offs to consider.
Exactly. It's about weighing the pros and cons and making informed decisions based on the specific project, your own skills, and your risk tolerance.
To make this more concrete, what are some real-world examples of how people are actually using vibe coding right now?
We're seeing some interesting early applications. People are using it to create simple web pages, build basic games. There was even a vibe coding game jam where people experimented with creating games primarily through AI-generated code. There's also potential in areas like data science, where you might use vibe coding to generate data analysis scripts. And one example that got a lot of attention was a live stream by Lovable and Supabase, where they built a whole event management app in a remarkably short amount of time using vibe coding techniques.
An entire event app, just like that. That's impressive.
Yeah, but remember, it's still early days. Just because you can build something quickly doesn't mean it's production ready, especially for something as complex as an event management app. It's important for you to understand that while vibe coding is great for rapid prototyping, it doesn't necessarily mean you can skip all the traditional steps of testing, debugging, and ensuring the code is robust and secure.
So maybe temper the enthusiasm with a healthy dose of realism.
Right. And it's interesting that a lot of these early success stories seem to be in areas where speed and creative exploration are paramount, and maybe long-term maintainability is less of a concern. Think about games, for example. It's okay if a game has a few bugs, but you don't want those same bugs in, say, banking software.
Good point. So what are the experts saying about all this? What's the general consensus on the potential and the pitfalls of vibe coding?
There's a range of opinions out there, which is always healthy. Karpathy himself has acknowledged that current AI tools can struggle with really detailed bug fixing. Simon Willison, who we mentioned earlier, has been pretty vocal about his concerns about using vibe coding for production-level code because of the potential security and maintainability risks. The ThoughtWorks podcast had an episode where they discussed this, and they also raised some valid points about code quality and the potential for technical debt. And then you have some folks, like Charlie3pins.dev, who see vibe coding as more of a fun tool for weekend projects. Hacking together something cool, but not necessarily something you'd rely on for mission-critical applications.
So it sounds like a healthy mix of excitement and caution.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And for you, the key takeaway is that you need to be aware of the potential downsides, not just the hype. The core concern for you is really about understanding. Do you, as the user, truly understand the code that the AI is generating? If not, how do you ensure it's well-written, secure, and maintainable in the long run?
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. How does vibe coding fit into the broader landscape of software development? How does it compare to traditional coding and those low-code and no-code platforms that are becoming so popular?
When you compare vibe coding to traditional coding, the biggest difference is the focus. Traditional coding is all about mastering the syntax, the logic, the structure of a specific programming language. You need to know the rules of the game inside and out. With vibe coding, the focus shifts to expressing your intent clearly and letting the AI handle the translation into code. So for simple tasks, you can get stuff done much faster with vibe coding, but you might have less fine-grained control over how the code is actually implemented.
Right, so it's a trade-off between speed and control, kind of like choosing between driving a car with an automatic transmission versus a manual one.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of error handling. With traditional coding, you're responsible for finding and fixing bugs yourself. With vibe coding, you could potentially get help from the AI. And maybe the biggest difference for you in terms of your long-term engagement with the code is the level of comprehension. With traditional coding, you understand every line of code because you wrote it. With vibe coding, you might have a more superficial understanding, which could make debugging and maintenance more challenging down the road.
So vibe coding might be great for getting a quick prototype up and running, but maybe less ideal for building a complex system that needs to be maintained for years to come.
That's a reasonable assessment. And then when you compare vibe coding to low-code, no-code platforms, you're essentially comparing two different ways of making software development more accessible. Low-code, no-code platforms typically use visual interfaces, and pre-built components think drag-and-drop interfaces. Vibe coding uses natural language to tell the AI what to do.
So they both aim to simplify the process, but they go about it in different ways.
Right. Low-code, no-code platforms might give you a more visual, intuitive way to build something, but you're limited to the components and features they provide. Vibe coding, in theory, gives you more flexibility because you're not bound by those pre-built elements, but it also means you might have less direct control over the underlying code. And it's worth noting that we're starting to see some interesting hybrid approaches that combine elements of all three: traditional coding, low-code, no-code, and vibe coding.
It sounds like the software development world is getting increasingly diverse, with lots of different tools and approaches emerging. But let's say you're intrigued by vibe coding and you want to give it a try. What are some best practices for ensuring that the code you're creating is actually, good quality? What kind of toolkit is out there to help with that?
First and foremost, never underestimate the importance of testing. And I can't stress this enough, especially for you. Rigorous testing is absolutely essential with any kind of software development, but it's even more crucial when you're dealing with AI-generated code. You need to have clear testing objectives. You might want to look into AI-assisted debugging tools to help identify issues. And crucially, don't skip the human review. Even though the AI is doing the initial coding, you still need to have someone with coding expertise look at the code, understand it, and make sure it's well-structured and meets your quality standards.
So don't just blindly trust the AI, even if it seems to be working fine at first glance.
Exactly. And thankfully, there's a whole ecosystem of tools emerging to support vibe coding and help ensure quality. You've got platforms like GitHub Copilot, which integrates AI-powered code completion right into your existing coding environment. Cursor is another interesting one. It's an AI-enhanced code editor designed specifically for this kind of conversational coding with an AI. Replit is a cloud-based IDE that's also incorporating AI features. And then, of course, you have the general-purpose large language models like ChatGPT and Claude, which can be used for code generation through natural language prompts.
So many options. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, the landscape is evolving quickly. There's also Amazon Code Whisperer, which is specifically tailored for developers working within the Amazon Web Services ecosystem, and some other notable tools and platforms to keep an eye on. Tab9, Lovable, Bolt.new, Trickle AI, Cody by SourceGraph, VR0 by Vercel, Ascody, Codium, OpenAI Codex, DeepCode AI, which is now Snakecode, Microsoft IntelliCode, Quoto, and Glide. We're even starting to see voice-based coding interfaces like SuperWhisper, which is pretty wild.
Voice-based coding. Wow, that does feel like the future.
It does, right. And the cool thing is that these tools cater to a wide range of users. Whether you're a seasoned developer or someone who's just starting out, there's likely a tool out there that can help you explore the world of vibe coding.
Okay, so looking ahead, where is all this heading? What are the adoption trends? And what might the future of vibe coding look like?
Well, all the data we have points towards significant and growing adoption of AI-powered coding tools. Surveys from last year, reports from companies like Y Combinator, they all suggest that a lot of developers and startups are already incorporating AI into their workflow. And we can expect this trend to continue. Vibe coding is likely to expand its reach into new domains like game development, web development, data science.
So it's not just a fad, it's a real shift that's already happening.
Right. And as for the future of software development, I think we're going to see a continued evolution of the developer's role. Prompt engineering, code review, these skills are going to become increasingly important. And I wouldn't be surprised if hybrid methodologies become the norm, where developers strategically use a mix of traditional coding, low-code and code, and vibe coding, depending on the specific task.
So vibe coding isn't going to replace traditional coding overnight, but it's definitely something that developers need to be aware of and start experimenting with.
Exactly. It's about adapting, staying curious, and figuring out how to best leverage these new tools to enhance your workflow and push the boundaries of what's possible in software development.
To wrap things up, what are the key takeaways our listeners should walk away with from this deep dive into the world of vibe coding?
The bottom line for you is this. Vibe coding is potentially revolutionary. It could change how software is developed and who can develop it. But it's not a magic bullet. It has its limitations and its risks. And ultimately, the success of vibe coding will depend on how well we, as humans, understand and manage those risks.
It's a powerful tool, but it needs to be used responsibly and with a clear understanding of both its potential and its pitfalls.
Exactly. The future of software development is likely to be a collaborative dance between humans and AI. And for you, understanding how to lead in that dance will be key.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, dear listener. As AI becomes more and more intertwined with how we create software, what does it mean to be a programmer? What skills will be most valuable? How will your relationship with technology evolve as we move into this new era of human-AI collaboration? Maybe take some time to explore some of those vibe coding tools we mentioned, or dive into the ethical discussions happening around AI and software development. It's a fascinating and rapidly changing landscape, and staying informed is more important than ever. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.